This is log number 24, and I'm recording this on the 5th of April, and it's a Friday, my end of the week, and the recap that follows. I'll say that this week was a long time coming. It's been now 4 weeks since I've been working on the fourth design, and it's basically done. I have just a slight few things to do that I didn't want to push into this week, given that I didn't want to rush it. Uh, I'm really happy with the result. It's unlike the other designs, much different and sort of an accumulation of everything that I've learned from the other ones. And it has been one of the few designs that I sort of barely noticed it was there. As in, there wasn't a lot of challenges given that I've sort of had a lot of lessons before when I moved to this one, and there were some things that I realized I cannot do given the scale. Uh, it's smaller, and I wanted to do this specific thing that it would have worked when it was if it was bigger size, but it didn't, and I was quick on my feet. I knew how to sort of handle that, and I think I did a pretty good job at it. And overall, I'm really happy with it, and I gotta say the the whole conclusion of sort of having a design and with it comes the deeper sort of story elements that you can find and explore within the composition. I've been I've been really sort of pushing it to the limit, and especially in this design, and especially in general, like this side of the two lanes of the statues, given the three other designs were the opposite lane that I'm doing now in the hole that I'm sort of drawing, and on this lane it's much more intricate and much more sort of story driven statues, and having to consider how the story will be presented and how you will interact with it, or you would sort of go through with it, and what would you prioritize, what would you leave behind, and all that has had me sort of fascinated in the process of doing this specific one. There's not a lot of lights in this one, given the previous ones there were sort of like some obvious light source. In this specific one it was sort of like a dim, um sort of spatial neutral light, and when obviously when things were piling on top of each other, harder shadows would appear below, given that it was sort of like a soft box of light coming from the top. And the real challenge in this one has been the the understanding that things that I really want to create and put into the compositions aren't really allowed with the scale. For example, there's, you know how I section the composition in 8 different sort of sections, and I would sort of tackle them each one until I reach the eighth one. Well, this week was the eighth compositional sort of depiction and measuring and whatnot. It was sort of a prototype of me trying to create that eighth sort of section and how that will look. And I had to sort of like create silhouettes of really small figures and sort of create a bit of a story that is happening within the story. So we're talking about like, I don't know, half, not even half an inch, just even 1/4 of an inch sort of space to create an expression, and that didn't turn out very well. I pushed it as much as I could, but the skill wouldn't allow it, and my hand would feel very sore given that I had to really control my movements and everything. So it was 2 days ago, and by now my hand is a little bit swollen, given that I was sort of pressing the mechanical pencil not to move a lot, to just sort of have very specific lines and whatnot. So that didn't turn out very well, but it's fine because as I was doing that, I realized that expressions on the level that I wanted to interpret wouldn't make sense in the skill that I was creating, and I opted out in a different sort of approach, but at the same time that had a bit of a deeper storytelling capability. So I like that. I was very really consistent with that actually, and I was quite impressed. So there's just a few sort of touch ups that needs to be done that I didn't want to rush this week. I felt myself getting tired, and when I feel tired and it's sort of the end of the design, I usually get sloppy, and I usually sort of go things faster or just sort of ignore them, which isn't the way to go. So I decided, the new week will come and I'll do it then. And so it will happen in the beginning of this new week, probably day on Monday, the day that you're hearing this, I'll probably finalize the design, sort of completely have it out of the way. And this week is going to be a little bit different in terms of what I'm going to be doing because I have a lot of things piling up aside the stonemason that I need to do. Sort of that side hustle slash new endeavor that I was talking about a few weeks ago. That I found some collectibles that I put them in frames. I really want to get that sort of sorted this week, so I have that ready to go whenever I decide to launch that. Uh, Before I continue on the other design, and there's another thing that needs to be done that is on the back burner that I forgot right now. It sort of escapes me, but it's sort of this week I wanted to be sort of a cleanup of the things that have been piling up. So by the end of it, I know exactly what I need to do in the stonemason, and sort of as I always do, reevaluate the composition that is the fifth design, make sure that's okay, but that usually takes like half a day. Um, and do all the other things that are piling up. And as soon as this week is over, I can start fresh on the fifth design and enjoy the exploration of that, which is quite unique as of any compositional section in this stonemason. But this time, every time it's sort of exciting. Um, so what was the thing that I wanted to do other than the frame thing? Yep, selling my car. That's another thing that I need to do. Um, given that I don't move a lot lately and it's only accumulating sort of money to keep it going, I'm gonna make sure that this week I put my car on sale as well, which is not a big deal because I hardly use it, and there are two cars that I can borrow occasionally from family members to do my thing, so it's more than okay to let that go and accumulate more money to put back into this stonemason or whatever sort of endeavor that I want to do. Given that um, in the weeks to come and in the months to come, as I finish the designs, don't have a lot left. The writing part is going to start getting reevaluated, and all the things that I was telling on how I want to do more research, I want to do all that stuff. It's going to require me to move around a lot, and there is a specific sort of idea that I want that it needs me to travel back to this specific location that I've been to sort of do a more research now that I know sort of the way around. So I might be doing that as well. So accumulating as much as income as I can, sorry, to be able to make these moves when the design sort of allow me to move on will be great. So I'm doing that now that I have the energy before something else in the journey sort of stops me or puts a spanner in the works that usually comes unexpectedly. Because so far in this design that I've done and the lessons that I've learned, It was sort of like not really smooth sailing, but it was very calmly. I had the energy to sort of look around and do other things on the side and really develop them. Versus the, oh, I'm having a bit of trouble here. Let's find a way to make this work without fixating too much, but at the same time using my energy to get this to work. And I figured that the more I progress in the story, the more troubles I may face. So having the effort being done on these side things now that I can spare it will be great. And whenever sort of I decide to even launch this new sort of income endeavor that I have in mind, it's just as simple of deciding the days to just launch it. So yeah. At the same time, somewhere around summertime, where I probably would be design number 6, the final one on the smaller designs, I will probably start recycling my flow paintings, the ones that are left, to sort of shed some more attention to them so I can sell them, or attempt to sell them again, given that I completely neglected that so far after a few sales. So I need to sort of think about the way that I'm going to do it, which I mentioned it in passing in a couple of vlogs ago, on how I want to do like an in-depth sort of description behind it. In a way, it's going to take some time, but I'm going to have my plate clean to actually tackle that when the time occurs. So that's how I'm feeling now. I'm feeling quite positive. Um, Quite optimistic on how I'm sort of opening up new things and closing them at the same time. The effort that I was putting on these side hustles and sort of establishing them this week, giving myself sort of like a break from the stonemason, but at the same time catching myself up with the other things to be able to completely focus again on the stonemason. I don't really think of it as a break, given that I'm actually doing things again. Um, but I don't feel tired from them. And my quote unquote real break from the stonemason drawing section will be when I take a month to actually read a lot of the books that I have planned. That's when I finish the drawing part. So I completely sort of have that out of the way. And yeah, it's been it's been an interesting challenge to reach the point where this is completely my routine now. Not in a way that it's just, oh, it's mechanical, but it feels like it's embedded in my life. And it's hard to explain when you reach a point with something that, given that I don't really have a boss, I don't really have someone to keep pushing me to do it, I could have easily said, oh, this is demanding more attention than I initially wanted, and I can just skip it and do the next thing, work or something else, anything. And it's a possibility as you're doing something, given that you don't have that sort of pressure or that responsibility of upholding whatever you say. But I've reached a point where I'm so far in, mentally and physically, in terms of what I've done. Yes, of course, but I'm at a point where this became my reality now, and I'm gonna see this through. And it feels sort of nice. I don't know if it replaced that itch that I had with flow, given that in flow it was the same. I would sort of keep pushing on it every single day, streaming and painting, and that would sort of fulfill that. But it was more two dimensional in flow than it is now, because now I have the actual freedom of being not being accountable, given that I don't really have people live watching me and being in their schedule. I can say tomorrow I don't want to do this and do something else. So the chance of me slipping away and saying, fuck this, I'm out, is much higher, at least in the beginning, in this theme that it was in flow, given that, you know, even if some days in the flow journey I said, I really don't want to do this, I would do it because I felt responsible of both my words and the people that were used to be regulars, and me having to sort of like show up to work kind of thing. But I guess I learned from that, and now that I have these big endeavors and big journeys that I'm doing by myself, I am able to do that and able to be diligent with them because I've learned from my past. There was a lot of rewiring that I need to do, as you were hearing in the countless logs that I've been sort of outpouring, 24 to be exact. And I reached a point where I feel like this is sort of compatible with my life and how it's going. And moving forward now on, it's a lot easier knowing that even if there's difficulties, I'm gonna find ways to actually make it work. Whereas sort of flashback back to log number 10, somewhere there, 9, I don't know, somewhere there, where my first design were sort of being drawn, and I faced the biggest struggle that I faced in the theme so far, which was that I spend like a month designing, enjoying this composition. It was my first one. I didn't know how much I should do it, or how less, the details, whatever. And the phase, I'm always very particular with my phases. I go the extra mile when it's needed, and I hardly settle on something. So typical me fashion, sort of was overworking it and overworking it. I didn't realize that the paper that I was working on it couldn't handle the constant reworking, and it sort of teared and made a hole in the sort of in the composition, and the face had like a texture that completely ruined it. And there was I, the first challenge, saying maybe this is not gonna work. But I suck it up, and I found a way to do it. I learned how to overcome it, and I sort of cut another paper and stick that sort of shape of the face on top, and I redesigned it, and it looked actually pretty cool because it's a statue. And when you break a statue, it sort of made sense to me, right? Like you break the face, and then you put something on top of it because it's the new face or whatnot. Sort of, it made sense, and I included it in the story and the way that this design was going to be. And I started doing it regularly, intentionally on other designs as well. That made sense for me to actually do that and actually break this perfectionism that something should be a particular thing in the beginning and it should stay that way. But it keeps sort of growing and learning from it, and it was a pretty funny story, traumatizing in the night to come of that day. But I knew that if I have faced that, I was able to do anything in the story, anything that this sort of, in my urge in seeking knowledge, the hurdles that I was going to face. I knew that I was at some point or somehow was going to overcome, and that's why I'm anticipating something major to happen soon in the story that will probably gonna shake me up a little bit, but I'm gonna find a way out. But it's gonna take energy, so therefore, getting all these things off my plate that have been piling up will be ideal. So yeah, this was log number 24, and this week is all about cleaning up my plate. Should have started that in the beginning. Oh, I'm gonna clean up my plate this week. Anyhow, let's see how this week goes, and design number 5 soon to be in the works.